A few weeks back, I was talking to somebody with a lot of connections within Hollywood, a lot of producers, bigwigs, executives, kind of like that. And they were talking about how Bob Iger has been scared straight. He's realized that everything is bombing at Disney, within the Marvel MCU, within Star Wars, within Pixar. And obviously they've made a lot of bad decisions, and he wants to fix that. And they were adamant that Bob Iger has seen the light. He's going to be going for quality over quantity, and you are going to see big changes. Me personally, I am taking a I'll believe it when I see it approach to that information, but it does appear, at least from a lot of the rumors out there, that he is taking a hard, fast stand. In fact, he actually stood up to Kevin Feige recently and overruled him on Eternals 2, because Bob Iger knows that is a guaranteed failure on the ledger of Disney and Marvel Studios. And apparently a lot of people, these stands out there that believed an Eternals movie was ever in the making, are not very happy with that one. We're going to have some laughs about that. And we've also got some updates on the Blade production, as well as, I guess, rumor confirmed, regarding Henry Caville's actual character he's going to play in the MCU. It sounds like he's really going to be there. He's just not going to be Captain Britain. And I will end off this video with that, because that is tremendous news. And I think a lot of people will be smiling when they hear it. But we do need to get through all this good stuff about the cancellations, what has actually been on the axe, because we do know Bob Iger has said we are canceling projects that we know are not going to be successful, and it is pissing people off. In a post on Patreon, as detailed by numerous outlets, Daniel RPK Richmond reported that the decision to scrap Ant-Man 4, Captain Marvel 3, and Eternals 2 had been made as a part of a turn by the studio away from risky projects and more towards surefire success. Further, the scooper also claimed that though Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige was apparently gung-ho on pushing through with a second Eternals film despite the poor reception of the first, he was ultimately overridden by Iger and his assumption that the sequel would likely turn out to be another Marvel box office bomb. And I remember where people were kind of speculating, like, what do you think he canceled at Marvel? And, you know, they brought up Shang-Chi. I was like, I don't see them actually canceling that. They probably should. But is Kevin Feige going to give up his Asian Black Panther movie? I think that's how Marvel Studios sees that project. There's no way they're going to give that one up. And nobody was mentioning Eternals 2. I said in the video, I was like, man, the one that you know likely got scrapped by all this stuff is Eternals 2, because it was a nightmare when the first movie came out. It's one of the worst reviewed Marvel MCU movies of all times. Nobody really holds it in high regard. Nobody's ever been asking for a sequel to this project, and it was just good, smart business to cancel a stupid project like that. Now, as far as Ant-Man 4, there's really no more story to tell with Ant-Man. You know, they've done 3 movies already. The first one felt like a breath of fresh air. It wasn't the enormous box office sensation that some of the other MCU movies were at the time. You know, it didn't hit $1 billion, but it went well over $600 million. I believe Ant-Man and the Wasp also went over $700 million as well. But then when you get to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I think it only hits $400 million. And I think that is the lowest reviewed MCU movie out there, right below the Eternals. And then right above that, obviously, is the Marvels, Captain Marvel 3. It sounds like Brie Larson does not want to play this character anymore. And it's no surprise that they decided to scrap Ant-Man, Captain Marvel, and Eternals when you have the 3 lowest reviewed movies by critics are all those franchises, at least the latest entries in those franchises. They just weren't really going anywhere. I love Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. Throw him in an Avengers movie. Nobody really likes Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, but I do like Iman Vellani as Miss Marvel. Throw her into a little TV show ensemble thing, and she'll do fine. The Eternals, toss them into the sun, because no one cares about the characters. You know, I understand it's a Jack Kirby concept that they try to make a big thing within Marvel Comics, but it never really worked. There was no need for the Eternals. It never really got accepted. You just had the Kieran Gillen latest reboot of Eternals, didn't even make it, I think, it to 10 issues. They had to take the final story arc that he wanted to do and make it into an event that also didn't sell because the Eternals were a part of it. There's just no need, want, or enthusiasm for anything really Eternals. I guess, except for some people out there that probably pirated the show or pirated the movie or whatever and want to claim like they're the biggest Eternal stands in the world. And this stuff was really funny. Then also talk about the Mary Sue, who are apparently very upset because the Eternals was so flush with representation. And we know that's probably one of the things that kind of killed the project, where Kevin Feige was like, let's take Eternals, kind of unknown, and then we'll put all of our diversity checkbox stuff into one cast, and people won't know that we changed anything because nobody liked the stuff to begin with. It turns out that was not a recipe for success. And this is what Sansa Walker said on Twitter. In response to this, I was not sent constant death threats by Marvel fans for defending this movie and the death representation for Bob Iger to be like, nah, we're not going to make a sequel. That is correct. You were not sent constant death threats from Marvel fans over the Eternals. Like maybe one person DM'd you, maybe two people DM'd you and were unpleasant. I doubt there was anything to do with the death threat in there. Like, what do you mean you like the Eternals? I'll kill you. Like, you like deaf characters? That will be the end of you. I'll murder you for liking deaf people. Like, whatever. But, you know, that does kind of point out the big problem with the Eternals is that the one thing that Sansa Skywalkers can say about the movie that they like is that it had deaf representation. Well, what about the plot? What about the characters? What about the story? What about the momentum? What about the soundtrack? What about the performances? What about the CGI? You're not mentioning any of that stuff because Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios saw it as a vessel for representation rather than a vessel for entertainment and action and lots of fun superhero storytelling, which needs to be the number one priority. And that's why we're not getting an Eternals 2. And that's why the people that are crying out are like Sansa Skywalker's here, like, people threatened to murder me because I like deaf people. Yeah, that didn't happen. The first statement was true. I was not sent constant death threats. That is correct, Sansa. No one sent you death threats over this. Like, what a stupid thing. We got another one here from Lady Dragon JJ. Bob Iger's target audience moving forward, not by choice, basement virgins who don't care about race and gender until a lady or POC or queer character dares to exist. Of course, everybody that doesn't like the Eternals is an incel that lives with their mom in their basement. But if you look at some of these moves, like, we can't really compare the success of Eternals 2 to Eternals 1 because we didn't get Eternals 2, but the drop-off from Captain Marvel to the Marvels is quite substantial. I think Captain Marvel did $1.1 billion, over $1.1 billion, and Captain Marvel, or the Marvels, the sequel, the Marvels, did $200 million. So somewhere along there, we lost about $900 million in box office revenue. And it turns out, perhaps, if everybody that decided to bow out of the Marvels is a not-by-choice basement virgin, they might have some spending power. They might actually have some sway with Bob Iger and other people in entertainment if by deciding to abstain from a very bad superhero movie, they can put a $900 million dent in it. Unfortunately for Lady Dragon JJ and Sansa Skywalkers, that audience has not proven that they're willing to show up and support these movies. That audience has not proven that they can make a project into a success based on them. And I think that's really the big problem. Bob Iger had a choice. Do I want to go with the crazy people on Twitter and the social media weirdos that tell me that I need diversity and representation above all else within my projects that has seen me lose a shitload of money in 2023? Or do I want to listen to the people that helped make Endgame over $300 billion? Or do I want to listen to the people that put the first Avengers movie over $1 billion? Or was it Iron Man 2, I think, went over $1 billion. All these audiences that they apparently drove away trying to court Sansa Skywalkers and Lady Dragon JJ decided not to show up for the other projects like Eternals, like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, like the Marvels, and they basically just vacated and they're waiting for an opportunity to come back. I would say if all those people are basement-dwelling virgins, not by their own choice because nobody wants to have sex with them, if they can actually have that big of an impact, nearly $1 billion in total, I would say Bob Iger might be making the right move and following the money because it is a publicly traded company that does have a priority in actually making money for their investors. That is essentially what Bob Iger's job is as the CEO of Disney. And I do think he's trying to save his reputation and his job. And let's not forget, listening to Sansa Skywalkers and the Mary Sue and Lady Dragon JJ and the other idiots out there is the reason that Bob Iger is literally fighting for his business life at this very moment with a proxy war going on, trying to take his own board away from him and potentially just kick him out and replace him with somebody else because he followed down this stupid path that he decided, 12 insane people on Twitter need to dictate the future of Star Wars and Pixar and the MCU and all that kind of stuff. This is what the Mary Sue had to say. Viewers have a right to be outraged, as Disney's alleged new strategy is deeply concerning. When Disney claims it's not going to take risks anymore, Most recognize that female-led and diverse films are often considered risky because of the fear racist and sexist bigots will lash out. I don't think that's really the big risk that's coming along with these projects. What they figured out is, if you decide you're going to make a movie about a real-life trans person, and then you go out there and you hire an A-list actress like, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson, and it turns out Scarlett Johansson isn't actually trans, these people will freak the fuck out until you fire that person. If you decide to make a movie about a female character and you don't hire female writers and a female director, they will act like the literal fucking sky is falling. And hell, you might even get some death threats along with it. If you make a movie starring a black female superhero and it's not led by a black female director and writer's room team, these people will lose their mind. And you literally have no choices, no options on who your creator are going to be, because this audience will dictate what you have to do. And I think Bob Iger has realized that leaning into the crazies wasn't exactly making Disney a lot of money, which is probably the smart move, which is exactly what the person I was talking to recently that has some connections within Hollywood, with a lot of executives and producers, was saying was happening. Now, we do have some other changes. I don't know if you've heard about a movie called Blade. The Wesley Snipes movie was absolutely amazing. We're supposed to be getting a movie starring Mahershala Ali. It's been announced for several years now. It's been retooled more than Jenna Jameson at this point, but apparently it's undergoing another round of changes. The Can We Get Some Toast Twitter account is stating that Blade is currently getting retooled by Michael Green. The account adds that Blade has dropped part of the plot involving the flick being a period piece, and an additional tidbit is that it is claimed Blade will be filming in the UK. According to all the rumors, the plot of Blade involves it being set in the past, in the 1920s or so, and being about the daughter of Blade and or Blade's training a female protege. And that their tidbit at the end, or the rumor that's been going around Blade since basically they started production on it, is probably why the film needs to be retooled, and Bob Iger might have had to step in and get on Kevin Feige and say, hey, listen, nah, brah, people go to the Blade movie for the Blade. They want some vampire action, they want the Daywalker, they want the fucking swords, they want the martial arts. Nobody really cares about Bloodline. A lot of you are going, who the fuck is Bloodline? It's Blade's daughter. You probably don't know the character exists, because I think she showed up in 4 comic books, none of which anyone read besides myself and other people that review comic books. It's not a character anyone cares about. If you're going to introduce the Blade for the MCU, you bet your bottom dollar you better be delivering some fucking Blade action. And no one cares if he's training a female protege or whatever. They tried to do all that shit with Blade Trinity. What happened? It fell apart under the weight of Jessica Biel's terrible acting. I mean, she looks nice, but my goodness, that is a terrible movie. That is the good thing about rebooting Blade in the MCU, is you can never do worse than Blade Trinity. There are literally only 2 redeeming things about Blade Trinity. One being Ryan Reynolds as Hannibal Caine. He was actually pretty funny, even though the movie was so terrible. And then I guess the other one would have been the Triple H's dog, the little Shih Tzu or whatever it is that had the stalker mouth or whatever from the second Blade movie. That was pretty cool. Otherwise, that entire movie is awful. You could tell Wesley Snipes wanted to be anywhere in the world other than making a Blade movie. Or maybe not prison, because he was probably doing some tax evasion or whatever. But otherwise, he did not want to be there, and he would have rather been making another movie. But I don't think Kevin Feige and company could make a movie that bad unless, they make Bloodline a big part of it, because it's a character nobody cares about. I do have some good news for you guys. Some good news on the Henry Cavill front. We've been waiting for this. First, it was Captain Britain, and then it was Dr. Doom. Now, the latest whispers on the digital streets suggest that when former DCEU Superman actor Henry Cavill does finally make his long-rumored Marvel Cinematic Universe debut, he'll be doing so in the upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine as a multiversal variant of Wolverine. Word that the fan-favorite actor will soon be portraying a version of Marvel's most popular mutant was first reported by Giant Freaking Robots' Henry Hards. This rumor was later lent credence by noted scooper Can We Get Some Toast, who in the wake of Hards' article took to Twitter to announce, I can confirm that Henry Cavill will in fact play a Wolverine variant in Deadpool and Wolverine. And that is great news. Henry Cavill deserves better. He doesn't deserve what he got with the DCU, where he never even really got to play Superman. He certainly doesn't deserve what they did to him in The Witcher. He probably didn't deserve Argyle. I think he was in that movie, right? Well, I don't know what that thing even was, but it didn't look very interesting. Let's put it that way. I certainly wouldn't mind seeing Henry Cavill as the next Wolverine. Now, he is too tall, but so is Hugh Jackman, and he is just jacked enough to be a good Wolverine. And I think that's great casting. I hope Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios and Ryan Reynolds, who obviously was a big part of this, producing the movie, realizes, because we know Hugh Jackman really isn't supposed to be playing Wolverine moving forward because he's too old for it, that now there will be an expectation once you see Henry Cavill as Wolverine that he's going to be the new Wolverine when they launch the X-Men within the MCU. And I hope that's the case, because this dude has been shafted more than any other actor in fucking Hollywood history. Who's been screwed over more than Henry fucking Cavill over the last few years? The dude deserves a win, and I think he would make an absolutely amazeballs of fucking Wolverine. What a great idea. This is great news. I think we're going to be getting lots of cameos and lots of Easter eggs and all that kind of stuff within Deadpool and Wolverine. That will probably be the most interesting thing about the movie, because it feels like it's going to be far too meta, at least from the trailers that I saw. I was like, my goodness, could you get over yourselves and actually just make a good Deadpool movie? But we shall see. I do think this movie is going to make a lot of money, and good little rumors like this with Henry Cavill returning, or at least showing up as a multiversal variant of Wolverine to hopefully play the real Wolverine within the not 616, because that's the comic book universe. I don't even remember the number designator for the MCU or whatever it is, but to show up in that universe would be a great thing, because there's already a designator for the Fox Cinematic Universe stuff. So that is really cool. Better choice to be Wolverine than Captain Britain or Doctor Doom. They're never going to do anything big with Captain Britain. They certainly will with Doctor Doom, but I don't want to see Henry Cavill as a bad guy. Henry Cavill's a true blue fucking hero. And they probably do a hell of a good Canadian accent, which I think is going to be fantastic. So I don't know, depending on your perspective, maybe this was all good news. We're not getting Captain Marvel 3. We're not getting Ant-Man 4. We're not going to be getting the Eternals 2. It sounds like we're going to have Bloodline, Blade's daughter, removed out of Blade. And we are going to be getting Henry Cavill as Wolverine, at least for a little cameo within Deadpool and Wolverine. So perhaps, depending on your perspective, this is a glass is completely full or a glass is completely empty kind of video. I'm not really sure. I definitely want to hear from you guys, but there are a lot of things moving and shaking around the MCU. It sounds like Bob Iger is, in fact, taking a stand and making some real change to actually change the fate of the MCU and make it a blockbuster franchise once again. Hopefully, he starts doing some of this kind of stuff with Star Wars as well. And hopefully his big swing isn't just the Mandalorian and Grogu, because I don't think anyone cares about that, to be completely honest. But we shall see. If you would like more coverage of comic books and pop culture, and you haven't checked out the Patreon, I am telling you, you guys are missing out on some great stuff. If you like to listen to these videos and maybe not watch them on YouTube, there's also a tier on the Patreon where you can get all the audio files, download them, listen to them as a podcast and all that kind of stuff. And we do have upwards of 8 hours of brand new podcasts every single week on the Patreon that you will not find here on YouTube. So lots of great stuff going on over there. There's a link in the video description. If you haven't checked it out, I do hope to see you there.